Narcissists live in a fantasy world where they and everything they get involved in is absolutely perfect. And when you turn out not to be a perfect match for their perfect world, not only can this do a lot of damage to the relationship that you have with them and other people, it can do a tremendous amount of damage to your own self-esteem and your feelings of self-worth. And that's why in today's video, we're going to take a closer look at what's really behind the narcissist's perfect world. Welcome to Looking Behind the Mirror, where we explore narcissism and take our lives back as we make sense out of nonsense. As a quick disclaimer, everything I say is based on my opinions and my personal experiences. I'm not a professional, and if you're really struggling, I encourage you to seek professional help. I am providing links below for you. In today's video, I'm going to go through several examples and several ways that narcissists see themselves and their lives as perfect. But first, I want to kind of talk about what I mean by that and why it is that narcissists are so focused on perfection and why they can't accept anything less than perfection. And I think there's probably a lot of reasons for this, but the simplest one is their black and white thinking. To a narcissist, if something isn't perfect, there is no option other than for it to be completely worthless garbage. There's nothing in between. It is black and white. And this includes the worth of people and the worth of relationships and their own self-worth. If they can't see themselves as flawless and perfect and the most important thing that ever existed, there is no alternative in their mind but to see themselves as completely worthless garbage that doesn't deserve to breathe. And this is why it is so threatening to them to acknowledge any mistakes, any faults, anything that is short of perfect. It isn't just acknowledging that they're human or that they make mistakes. To them, it's acknowledging these deep pathological feelings of shame and self-hatred that they are constantly trying to run away from. These feelings that are the only other alternative to being perfect. To a narcissist, if they have to acknowledge imperfection that has come from them, they are giving in to these horrible feelings that they're always trying to hide from. Their need to see themselves as perfect is the equal opposite reaction to how they really feel about themselves. And that just magnifies this black and white thinking, because this opposite of perfection is how they really feel about themselves deep down. Their need to see themselves and everything they do as perfect is their need to run away from and not face these horrible, deep, shameful feelings of self-loathing. So that's why they want to see themselves as perfect. That's why they live in a fantasy world where everything they do is perfect. But how does this affect you when you're in a relationship with a narcissist? It affects you in a lot of different ways. So the first thing I want to talk about is the narcissist's perfect relationship. I think when we talk about a narcissist's perfect relationship, a lot of us first think about romantic relationships, and that is more or less what I'm going to focus on, but this could be any type of relationship for a narcissist. It could be a friendship, a family relationship, your neighbor, any kind of relationship you have with a narcissist. But let's focus more on romantic relationships. When a narcissist meets a potential romantic partner, they often get carried away in fantasies of this person being the answer to all their prayers. This person is the one. They've finally found the person that's going to make their life perfect for the rest of their life. And this is never really about the relationship itself. This is about the way that this person makes them look or makes them feel like what they look like. It's part of this fantasy. So when the narcissist gets involved in a romantic relationship, they aren't really seeing the person that they're with. They're not really developing a true relationship. It's all about the way things look. It's about a character that the narcissist has made up in their head that they feel will make them look the right way, will present the right image, that they imagine this new romantic partner is going to play. Like, oh, you're the perfect accessory for my perfect life. You're going to make my life look just like how it should, just perfect, right? And they can really love bomb you out of what they feel is really sincere, quote, love, when really it's just excitement about, wow, this person's a great new prop for my story about myself. This person fits perfectly into the way I want to see myself. Even though they're maybe not consciously thinking of it that way, that's why they can get so excited about new people they meet, because of what they imagine that person represents. And this is, of course, without getting to know that person at all. And then after time, if you are this romantic partner, you will inevitably show yourself as a real human being, a person with actual thoughts and feelings. And you aren't this prop that they imagined you were. You are not this perfect character that they conjured up in their head, because nobody could ever possibly be that. Nobody could ever possibly be the fantasy person that somebody else imagined. And as soon as anything happens to crack that fantasy in the narcissist's mind, they imagine that you betrayed them, you tricked them, you pretended to be this perfect, amazing person that was going to make them look good for the rest of their life. And that's why they punish you. And the reason they do this, the reason that they can't face the reality of, oh, I guess I had unreasonable expectations, they have to blame it on you, because if they take accountability for their own unreasonable expectations, that means that they're not perfect. That means that they made a mistake, or they had flawed judgment. And that means that they're a worthless piece of garbage that doesn't deserve to walk the earth because of their black and white thinking. And so they just get stuck in this perfect world, in this perfect fantasy. And when they are wrong, when they misjudge things, or they have unreasonable expectations, it's your fault. You're the one that let them down, because you turned out to be a real human being. And this leads us into talking a little bit more about this image, this perfect image that they want to create, this reputation, the perfect reputation that they want other people to see. Narcissists are really good at presenting the image in a superficial, surface level way that they want other people to see. And this image, this reputation can be very different depending on the unique traits of the narcissist themselves. Some narcissists want everybody to think that they are really smart, or really hardworking, or really nice, really friendly, really helpful. Some narcissists want everybody to think that they are really mean, and they want people to be afraid of them. And so this can vary a lot depending on what the narcissist's idea of perfect is, right? The idea of perfect is very subjective. So whatever the narcissist thinks is perfect, that's what they're going to want everyone to see them as. And that's why a lot of them will act in a lot of different ways and portray a different type of person, because it's all about how they think everyone should see them. And while that can be a reflection of their unique personality, what you're actually seeing is a show of what they want people to see. And for an especially charismatic narcissist that really cares about everybody seeing them as a friendly, trustworthy, helpful leader or something like that, a lot of people can really buy into this act. It can be extremely convincing if you don't get to know the narcissist very well. And we can see these types of narcissists a lot with people who say that, you know, once they married the narcissist or got into a close relationship, friendship with the narcissist, they saw a completely different side to a person that nobody else seemed to be able to see. And when they went to other people to try to tell them the truth about this person and how this person had harmed them, like, people wouldn't believe them, because the narcissist puts on such a convincing show. They're not all like this. Some narcissists really don't have very good social skills, even if they want to. And so they find ways to lie to themselves about how socially skilled they are. But some narcissists are really, really good at convincing a lot of people that they are something that they aren't. And I think until you get to know somebody like this really well, you really have no reason to question the act of a narcissist like this. And that's why so many people buy into these acts, because they've never experienced getting to know someone like this a little better and coming to understand when the mask comes off that it is all an act. It is all superficial and surface level. And the narcissist has never really let someone get to know the real them. They've never really developed deep, meaningful connections with anybody, because anyone that's gotten anywhere near that has seen that the narcissist is actually a very selfish, potentially abusive person. But narcissists don't really care about what the people very close to them think of them. They care about what the masses think. They care about their image, their reputation. And if you are very close to a narcissist, you're probably going to be punished. You're probably going to be the one that sees a more authentic version of them, because you're the one that let them down somehow. The closer you get to a narcissist, the more opportunity you have to disappoint them by not being part of this perfect world that is building up their perfect image and feeding their perfect reputation. And so they're going to feel completely justified in punishing you and letting their mask down. I mean, partially because it takes a lot of energy to keep up this act all the time. So if they get comfortable enough around you, I mean, they do need emotional punching bags, emotional toilets. And if you get close enough to them and they feel like nobody's going to believe you anyway, they start to feel a little more comfortable letting their frustrations out on you while maintaining their reputation with all the rest of the people that really matter. And of course, I'm saying that from their perspective. Of course, you matter. I hope I don't need to clarify that. Another really interesting realm of a narcissist's perfect world is their perfect history. I think this is really interesting because I've seen it in a lot of different types of narcissistic people that I've known. Narcissists are typically really excited to tell you about things that have happened in their past that you weren't there for. So if you've known the narcissist for 30 years, they might go on and on and on about things that happened 40 years ago. Or, you know, if you've known them for 40 years, they'll go on and on about things that happened 50 years ago. Narcissists, a lot of them will reminisce about all kinds of memories, all kinds of things that happened in their past all the time, but you're never in the story. You're never part of this fantastical history that they once lived before they knew you. And that's because if they sat and reminisced about things that you were actually present for, you would see that a lot of what they're saying is extremely embellished, exaggerated, and sometimes completely made up. But narcissists are lost in this fantasy history because they really are never present in the reality of today, because there's really nothing worth anything to them in the reality of today other than the fantasy of what they think everything means. But sometimes when they can't make up an exciting enough fantasy about what they have right now, they will just get lost in how perfect things used to be yesterday. They will get lost in telling stories that they feel supports their idea that they are this amazing, epic person that has lived this amazing, epic life. Just as an example, somebody that I know really well shared a story about their parents, and their parents, at the time that this story took place, their parents had been married for decades. So they were older and they took a vacation together. So this person that I know was driving through the mountains with their parents, and their mother, who in our opinion is very narcissistic, started reminiscing about driving through the mountains with a family member that she had known about 50 years earlier. And the father in this situation later shared with his adult child, that he was very hurt that they were driving together through the mountains having this experience, in the present moment, and all his wife could think about or talk about was something that happened before they ever even knew each other. But this is so typical of narcissistic people. They have no appreciation for reality of what they're experiencing now. They have to make everything this epic, amazing story. And what is so epic and amazing about today, right? It's not the people they're with, because they don't appreciate these relationships. They don't have deep, meaningful connections with real people in real situations. They live in a fantasy world. And so they're almost compelled to tell these amazing stories, or stories that they think are amazing, stories that support this image that they want to build about themselves, even when they could be enjoying the present moment that they're in with the people that they actually share their lives with. I also want to talk about narcissists in the workplace and how narcissists see themselves as the perfect employee or the perfect boss. Many of us have probably had narcissistic coworkers or narcissistic bosses, and their need to see themselves as perfect carries over into the workplace, and it translates into an inability to take accountability for their reality, for their flaws, not just their mistakes, but just what they actually do, what they're actually capable of. They need to see themselves as perfect and as better than everybody else. And so, if one person just slightly outperforms them, they cannot accept that, because they have to be the best, the only, if they're not the best, what's the only other alternative? They're the worst, because of their black and white thinking. So if somebody's just a little bit better than them at something, somebody has just a little bit better numbers than them, it can't possibly be because that person just did a little bit better this quarter or whatever. It has to be because of anything else, any other reason, because it can't be because this person's better than them, because they are the very best. They cannot accept reality. They cannot accept accountability. And so this will lead to a narcissist lying about people, taking credit for other people's work, accusing people of trying to cheat them, accusing people of cheating on whatever numbers they got, accusing their managers of being unfair to them, accusing their coworkers of being out to get them, or if they're a boss, accusing their subordinates of being the reason that they haven't performed like they should. Nothing is ever the narcissist's fault, because the narcissist is perfect. They are the perfect employee or the perfect boss. And so if they fail in any way, or they fail to be perfect, it can't possibly be because of anything they did. And so, of course, this can lead to a lot of huge problems in the workplace, because nobody's perfect. But anytime a narcissist is forced to face the reality that they aren't perfect, they have to take that out on someone or something else. They cannot just take accountability for it and improve themselves. They have to find some reason that it's someone else's fault. And I think it's pretty obvious to see how this can cause a lot of very serious problems when you have to work with somebody like this, especially if other people in the workplace aren't able to see through this. If this narcissist is like the type of person I talked about earlier, if this narcissist has very good social skills, is very charismatic, they might be very good at convincing other people that you're the one who's screwed up, or you're the one who's out to get them, or you're the one that cheated on whatever these numbers are, right? And if they have to, narcissists will throw you under the bus every time, because they care way more about their ego and about their perfect fantasy than they do about how it affects other people. They don't care at all, actually, how it affects you. If they can save their ego, save their perfect reputation by throwing you under the bus, maybe even causing you to lose their job, they will do it without thinking twice, because in their mind, it's your fault anyway, right? because they can't accept that they aren't perfect either. So when they're lying to everybody about you and what you've done to mess up their perfection, they're lying to themselves as well. They're convincing themselves that they really are perfect. It's your fault that something isn't perfect. And of course, all of this comes down to how they need to see themselves as the perfect self, the perfect person, because there is no other alternative that they can handle, that they can deal with. And all of these ways that they imagine that they're living in a perfect fantasy world are really just coping mechanisms to cope with this deep pathological self-loathing and shame that they really aren't willing to face or deal with as a mature adult. And in a lot of ways, narcissists have the emotional maturity and strength of a child, but these are not children. I think it's really important to remember that, because it can be easy sometimes for some of us to feel bad for them or to downplay how dangerous this extreme pathological narcissism can be, because they are like emotional children, but they're not children. They are your boss or your partner, your spouse, or your parent, or your best friend, or your coworker. These are people that can do real damage to your life. They might be an emotional toddler, but they're in the body of an adult with adult capabilities. And I think that's really important to keep in mind. But the whole point of this video, why I wanted to make it, was I really wanted to explain why you cannot ever be, quote, good enough for a narcissist, because no one can ever be good enough for a narcissist until they themselves are absolutely perfect. And not just perfect, but the narcissist's subjective idea of what perfect is. And even if you were able to be this subjective idea of what perfect is to this one particular narcissist, their idea of perfection is going to be changing all the time anyway. So even if you could do that, which some people have, some of you probably have been able to achieve this perfection, but it inevitably always falls through because the narcissist is changing their idea of what perfection means. So you absolutely will never be able to fulfill the expectations of somebody who isn't looking at you as a person, but is seeing you as a prop, as a character, playing a part in a movie about them, about their life. And not only are you nothing more than a supporting role in the story about them, but you're supposed to play your part in a specific way to make them look good. Not you, but them. And they do not care how much this does damage to you, to your life, to your relationships, to your self-esteem, because all they think about is what it makes them look like and how it makes them feel about themselves, because this deep pathological shame and self-hatred is eating at them 24/7. And that's why they are in this constant panic mode, trying to cope with these horrible feelings. And that's why they're stuck in this fantasy world where the only thing that matters is how they look and how they feel about themselves because of how they think they look. And so when this makes you feel like you're not good enough, like you used to be good enough for the narcissist, but now you're not because of all these horrible things that they try to tell you is wrong with you, it can be very convincing. It can be really easy to believe that it really is you, that there really was something about you that just wasn't lovable or wasn't good enough, or you didn't try hard enough, because narcissists are really good at coming up with explanations as to why it's your fault, as to why you're the one that disappointed them, because they're trying to convince themselves of this. And so if this is something that you have suffered with, if this is something you've gone through, I just want you to know that there was never anything you could do to be perfect enough for the narcissist's perfect world. It was always doomed to failure because of the narcissist, not because of you, because the narcissist's fantasy can never be real. And you can never be perfect. But while you can never be perfect enough for a narcissist, even though the narcissist will never be able to see it or recognize it, I want you to understand that you have always been good enough. I hope this helps. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and comment below any ideas you have for me for future videos. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you like this video and would like to see more like it in the future. Until next time, thanks. Bye.